What
My
up?
man, my man.
Hello, hello.
Okay, so from sports betting to trying to build the largest collection of Pokemon cards, the most valuable collection. I'm not using collection here in a way it's maybe more general. A vault. Uh, good. Yeah, excited to catch up with you, man. I feel like you're.
I know
I
this
know
is a long time
I
coming.
keep bugging. Josh, I know I've just been in Andy's DMs randomly over the last little while, being like, "What the fuck are you building? What are you building? What are you building?" Because you were building something in sort of the sports arena. I think obviously prediction markets, et cetera, have kind of taken off. I'm curious what sort of led to this shift. And I would just generally say for folks who don't know you, not only are you an incredible trader, though every time I tail you, I lose, brother. Like FOMO prompts are just
Yeah,
not good, dude.
lately
I'm
I've
not a
been losing
fan. So
too.
maybe a
Not
DM
last like
before.
couple weeks have been better.
Okay, that's good. That's okay. That's good. But I feel like you're a very pragmatic builder who's like very engaged in the emergence of the sort of culture and new assets and opportunities in crypto. And so I'm very curious in how you sort of updated your priors and why you're ultimately building what you're building today.
I like well, so yeah, for context, I worked on Fractional. That was like my first like startup in the space last cycle, basically during the NFT stuff. And then after we wound that down, my partner and I, Nate, like took some time and kind of figured out what we wanted to do next. And then we ended up working on something called IKB, which was a sports betting and like fantasy sports platform on Blast. And that was a lot of fun, but I think it was one of those instances where I'm a really big sports fan and I like do a lot of fantasy sports. Like kind of, there was a period of time where I was like kind of just like part-time doing that, like to make money. And it's significantly less fun to run a sports, like a fantasy sports or sports betting platform than it is to participate in those platforms. Um, and so like it did decently well, but we didn't want to raise money for it, and like that whole industry is just so competitive that unless you have a bunch of money and you're ready to pay like insane customer acquisition costs, it's just going to be really hard to succeed long term. And crypto helped with that, with like blast incentives and stuff, but it's just a really competitive industry, and an industry that's changing really fast between prediction markets and sports gambling drama and all of that.
Did you
And
guys
so
have
yeah,
a,
and
did you guys
so
have a did you guys have a unique take on kind of crypto native sports betting, or was it really just like no vig peer to peer and that's just going to be better?
so we were actually more of like a fantasy
Okay,
sports
got it.
platform, and our kind of unique take was we didn't take a cut of the peer-to-peer funds. We
Right.
were just earning yield on the interest of users' deposits,
Okay.
and that was like kind of enough for a small team to run. And so like we could have basically just run this peer-to-peer thing, but it kind of got hard to scale at that point because
Right.
we didn't have enough money to start bringing in more users and get more deposits and all that. But like the people who played on it liked it a lot. It was very well received from the fantasy sports world. Just really hard to kind of continue to scale that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so we decided to wind that down, and then Nate, my partner, and I, we were like talking, and I still owned Fractional. I still do own fractional.xyz. I'm like, that domain is so good. We should really try to find something to do with it. And we were just like chatting about ideas, and then that kind of led us to Monster and like this Pokemon card thing, and we were thinking about different versions of what it could look like. And I'm like a diehard Pokemon fan. It's the first video game I ever played. I remember sitting on my couch with my dad at like 5 years old playing Red version on Christmas morning. Um, and I grew up collecting all the cards. And I just got like really into kind of the idea of like trying to build a really large collection because I am bullish on Pokemon as like an asset class, and trying to think if there's ways you can do that that also allow you to monetize the collection. And that's kind of the like core ideas that I think that Pokemon cards and like collectibles like this are a bit unique in that not only can you kind of build this treasury or this vault, but that there are unique ways to monetize that treasury or vault of cards once you own them, like through gotchas or different like different sales or potentially fractionalizing them in the future or things like that. And that is kind of how we got to where we are.
Interesting. I think my first read, I felt like, oh, this is just another one of those Pokemon gotcha opportunities. There's a bunch in market. But in closer look, clearly there's some pretty big differences in how you're approaching it. Can you kind of detail out the difference here and why you see this as a big opportunity?
Yeah, for sure. I think I think that the gotcha market obviously has done quite well, and is very interesting. But I think the way that I kind of think about it is like combining like punk strategy or some of those things, and then courtyard, where it's like, okay, we're going to be acquiring more and more Pokemon cards, but like I don't want to just be listing them for sale for 20% price increase. Like I am significantly more bullish on Pokemon as an asset class than a 20% price increase.
Hmm.
And so then like what's a good way to monetize this? And to me, like a very clear version of that is with a gotcha. And obviously that means sometimes you're going to end up selling cards, or people are going to redeem those cards, and that's just like a price you have to be willing to pay. But then kind of the thesis is that if the kind of core like mission is to buy really rare, like really sick cards, then you also can offer a gotcha that is like very differentiated from a lot of other ones, where they just view the cards that they have as inventory that they're cycling through. And so they're just trying to buy an insane amount of cards that are all $500 to $5,000 and have people play and cycle through those cards. And that's really not what we want to do at all. It kind of, as we're starting, is kind of how you have to get going to get inventory and get supply. But long term, we want to be able to offer gotchas where, like, the odds are low, but you could hit a $100,000, $500,000 card, and like those are kind of just cycling in and out from this huge collection and treasury that we've built. And so you end up with this kind of interesting model where you're buying rare cards and using those to then make your gotcha really interesting and attractive in a way that others can't really compete, because they don't treat the cards the same way that you do. And then hopefully then use those funds and use that revenue to flow back to continuing to build a collection.
Can you just talk about why, I guess, the kind of growing cultural relevance of the gotcha mechanic, and like why you think that's kind of the right thing to put at the core of this?
Yeah, I do want to say I reserve the right for us to also use other monetization methods in the future. I'm not like by any means committed to only ever using this, but I think it like hits a couple of things really nicely. One is that you get something no matter what. So like in our gotcha, right, our price is actually variable. It changes based on the current cards. A lot of the other ones you see are fixed. Ours, like, we calculate the exact EV that you're going to get, add a little bit of a house edge, and that is the exact price you pay. And so it'll change every time you play, and that can be a little confusing, but that's why. So right now it costs like $1,300 to play. The worst card you're going to get is like $600. And so it doesn't quite feel as bad as like, oh, I'm going to, spin a wheel and odds are I get nothing. There's kind of, at least you're getting something. And also if you're playing these, maybe you like Pokemon cards, maybe there are cards that are cheaper than the gotcha that you do like. And so I think that that's really what has kind of propelled these to feel better than like going to play, a online casino game or something, because you have like actual feelings towards the thing and like this nostalgia towards the cards. And there's, a particular card that you want to try to get that's very rare. Like, one of the cards that we have in our gotcha, there's only like 100 of them in the world at that grade. And so it's like, if you want one, it's hard to get. And I think that kind of stuff really makes it feel a lot better, in a way that you didn't really have before. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, what are the economics of this? You're talking about adding a house edge. Like, where's the sort of revenue come from? I know you're teasing a token here, so I'm curious how that whole thing comes together.
Yeah, the pure economics of gotchas, and a lot of gotchas run at like, as far as the pure playthrough, at about like break even EV for users. Like some gotchas even offer like positive EV, where they say, oh, your average pull is going to be $510 and it costs $500 to play. A lot of how that works is, one, as you buy more and more cards, you can generally get better deals on those cards, start to make connections. Like I've just gotten very close with all of the auction houses that are selling cards at this point, and doing that a lot. And you can end up generally on average buying cards for cheaper than their fair market value. And then the other aspect, and probably the biggest aspect, is basically this like buyback mechanism, where once you do hit a card in the gotcha on Monster, we offer you 90 cents on the dollar for it right away. And so if it's not the card that you want, you can sell it back to us for 90 cents on the dollar, and then keep playing and try to get something else. And so that's generally where a lot of the revenue comes from, is people playing over and over again. And so even if there isn't too big of a house edge kind of in the initial sale, if people kept every single card you ever sold them, then you wouldn't really make very much money. But that buyback is where revenue comes in. And then as far as a token and how we think about that, I really do think that kind of it'll be different, but something along the lines of how some of the like NFT strategy stuff has worked, where you're leveraging trading fees to kind of generate more money to buy whatever you want to be collecting. I think makes a lot of sense here, and is generally the path that we're exploring. There's a lot that we need to figure out still, and that we're actively working with lawyers to figure out, as far as like how do we kind of correctly align the incentives of this card collection with token holders. What does that like legal structure look like? Because I think that's really important here. I don't want it to just be like a hand wavy thing of, oh, like the Devco LLC owns a bunch of Pokemon cards.
Trust me, bro.
And, theoretically, you maybe have those as well. And so figuring out the right kind of structure there is really important. But that's kind of how we're thinking about it.
How do you think about the meme of we're gonna go build the world's largest Pokemon treasury, and also the need to just constantly be selling them through the gacha? Like, are you gonna try to? I guess how are you thinking about building that collection while also having a bunch of inventory and rotating through it?
Yeah, so I think like from this kind of initial run, we've just like some rough numbers. We have like sold where people have hit a card from the gacha and not sent it back, like 40 to, I don't know, like 25% of like the inventory value wise. And we have made in revenue closer to 50% of the inventory. And so there's kind of just like it's not a bad business to be in by any means. And just like you have to kind of accept that some amount of the cards are going to be sold. And I think long term, I would love to be in a place where we have such a big collection, and so some cards, like ideally I would like to purchase some cards that are so valuable and so rare that we would never put them in a gacha, because there's just like no way that you would do that. But at least right now, we're comfortable with the risk of like cycling through cards and then buying more. And hopefully as we continue to like grow the balance of cards, I could see us, maybe there's like community votes on which rare cards go in at an individual time. And then that's like a really interesting thought process for people who are community members of, do you want to vote in a really rare card because you want to win it? Or maybe you think people will play a lot because they want to, or do you want to keep those in the vault and not have that, like not risk losing that card? And so I think that could add some fun dynamics too.
I'm curious. I mean, you've been a very avid trader. You're sort of making some calls on the market. I think one of the big open questions that is being continuously experimented with is, how do you go take a token to market in 2025 and then into 2026? I'm curious if you sort of take a broad view. What are some of the more interesting trends or opportunities you see around actually being able to effectively launch ultimately a longer tail token in the era that we're in today?
Yeah, it's really hard. It's probably the thing that I've spent the most time thinking about for all of this. And I don't know, like it's been really interesting watching, and granted these are projects kind of at a different like scope and scale of what we're doing, but like watching like Mega ETH and Monad both kind of like come to market at the same time with very different strategies and approaches. I think we're seeing like good things happen as far as like people trying to find like value aligned people, whether it's for an airdrop or for a token sale, these different things. And also at the same time, like a push to have tokens actually go to market at valuations that are reasonable, and giving like, because it was such a long period of time where it was just like unless you were in the seed round for a token, you just watched it go down only from the time that it came out. And I think it's been really good and valuable pushback that like one of the most powerful things in my experience in crypto is like the ability to like grow a really strong community of people around a project that like will root for it to succeed no matter what, and like are really in it for the long haul. And you just like don't get that from some inflated like low float high FTV token. And so I think those are by far the most interesting things to like continue to watch, and seeing like regulation kind of around it all continue to change is very interesting. I think like we don't really know what the final solution will be, and there's not going to be one size fits all by any means, whether it's stuff like Legion or Echo or just fair launches or different things. I think we'll see it all kind of continue to play out. And so like it's a kind of boring answer of saying I don't really know, but it's a very interesting time to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's
all of this
absolutely
kind of
fascinating.
market.
One of the big questions that I think we're seeing tested right now is when should you launch a token? And I think we're seeing a lot of teams come out do that very
Yeah.
early. I'm wondering your take there.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, there's definitely pros and cons, and like the cons are very real. Of now you have a bunch of people who are, who have bought into this thing, whether you like it or not, and have their own opinions and their own feelings. But I do think that we're kind of seeing a time where it's really, really hard to get distribution and attention and mindshare if you don't have a token. It's just like increasingly more and more challenging. And so I think that in some ways, if you have a product or you're really like super locked into this vision of a thing that you need to make, like you can make a good case that having a token earlier to get mind share, get attention, and help you continue to build and build people around you who can give you feedback and advice and all that is really valuable. I think there's definitely times where you probably shouldn't be launching a token yet, but I think generally defaulting to the earlier side, at least lately, it seems like it is the better way to go.
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on what you're trying to go build, right? I think if you're on the venture path, want to go, create this kind of traditional looking $1 billion outcome, it makes your job a lot harder. If I think in the case of what you're building, it's kind of this fun cultural movement that can obviously be huge, but I think having a token earlier makes a lot more sense.
Well, I mean, you haven't launched a token first, so I think there's more in your actions here than in your words, and I think I would agree with it. And so I think maybe we're actually just moving the goalpost a little earlier, but I think the question is like from day one, like as like the first thing, the way that you're forming capital and aligning interest. I think I have a bigger question around that. I'm very happy that other people are running at it because I think I'm probably wrong in some way here, right? And I think there is a type of application, opportunity, product that both will benefit from that early issuance, and maybe, yeah. There's one of the big questions I have is like, does venture math change because we have early liquidity around this? And I think the answer is yes, but I'm not sure exactly how.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think like at least for us with this, we talked about, do we launch a token day one when it goes live or even before, because the trading fees would help to buy more Pokemon cards, and we are fully bootstrapped up until this point, and so like I've just been buying a lot of Pokemon cards, and these all need to go to the vault.
He's the gotcha.
Yeah, I'm the gotcha currently.
Just does his hand with the clock.
Actually, what's happening in the back end when you play, I haven't left my house in days, and I'm just picking up cards. I shuffle them around and I give you one.
Make sure you clarify that's a joke, otherwise you're going to get a whole thread here about your provably fair being not provably fair.
Yeah, that is a joke. But yeah, and so I think like there is the right time and place to do a day one thing. I think if you are trying to do something anonymously and like don't really have connections, then it makes more sense too. Obviously still within morals and all of that, but if you don't have, like, I am very fortunate that I have distribution and I can make something without a token and post it on Twitter and say, hey, try this thing, and people will try it. And there's some people who don't have that benefit, and then that's another example where I think an earlier token really can help with, because the group chats, the trading group chats, they find everything. They will find your token and they will check it out and see if it's legit or not. And if you are being legit and you're doing something interesting, it is a good way to get yourself out there.
Yeah. Andy, maybe last question before I let you go. I'm interested in your 2-year bull case for the value of your treasury.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's funny because I'm not bad at trading things, but I really don't consider myself a good trader. I'm just like a long-term only bull in everything in life. which has generally worked out so far.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good strategy.
But I'm really bullish on and I'm not alone in this. Other people have written out theses on this much better than I have, but I'm very bullish on nostalgia, and I'm bullish on like things that you can purchase that make you feel good, that you can also make money on. Like I think that that's a really interesting part of the world, and like I love, like I genuinely enjoy that on Sunday night I got to like sit and watch football and just bid on auctions on Fanatics all night for this. Like that is just, it was really fun for me to do, even though it's not for cards that I'm purchasing for myself. And I think that like there's something really valuable there, and that I don't really see a version of society in the next couple of years that is going away from that. And Pokemon in particular is such a Lindy kind of, it's really established itself as like the 30-year-old nostalgia kind of collectible thing in a way that I thought maybe sneakers would. I was a big sneaker guy earlier and things like that, but Pokemon is, I think it's really kind of positioned itself quite nicely. And I'm just very bullish on people continuing to have some disposable income and want to use it on things that make them feel good, but also could potentially make them money.
What happened to the sneaker market?
Blew up. It's different than it was. I think a lot of it was like a supply issue, and that's another thing with Pokemon is you can't ever mint the first edition Pokemon cards again. Whereas like when I buy a rare pair of Yeezys, I don't want to have to tell everyone like, oh no, this was the first release of these, not the 10th. Like this is a cooler shoe. You don't understand. And I think a lot of that just kind of changed over time, to where like the supply just, and also the fake market got really bad. And so far that I'm that's something I'm like a little bit worried about with Pokemon stuff, is like how good can fakes get as we get better and better technology. But at least right now with the grading process and everything, it's an issue, but it's not nearly as big of an issue as with like sneakers or something like that.
Yeah, the sniff test for Pokemon cards. Awesome, man. Well, I mean, I guess I'm also very curious. Are you positioned in a bullish way into the end of Q4 and early next year, or do you have some doubts?
I am, but kind of like I said earlier, I don't really know if me saying, oh, I'm positioned in a bullish way is like not
Always?
that useful.
Another Monday.
I always am. I don't. Yeah, like I have cash that I used to pay for my life, but like my cash that is for trading crypto, I don't really ever like sell to stables. I'm not like leverage long, but I own a lot of things, and I think I just, being someone who's been building in crypto for a long time and spent a lot of time in it, I'm just like always optimistic and excited about something, and that just, to me, that's always way stronger than whatever like I read online about macro or things. I'm not someone who really knows that stuff and understands it, but what I understand is products that I think are cool and technology that I think is cool, and there's always something to be excited about.
So what are you excited about
that tends
then,
to
maybe that you haven't represented here?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously am excited about Pokemon card stuff. I think the conversations around like privacy stuff are really interesting. I've been in and out of some Zcash stuff and all that, but I think in general, the continued ability for people to like live their lives like and their finances on chain is really cool. And there's like, a bunch of neobanks that are coming up and all that kind of stuff. I'm really bullish on that, and kind of also just like the long tail effects of that as it becomes like, it's genuinely more convenient for me to use like EtherFi as my bank than Ally Bank or whatever.
Talk about feeling bad about using a product, walk into my bank and have to send a wire. I'd rather,
literally,
I gotta, like psych myself up to go do it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go do it right now.
and so I think like that, just when you use these things and they're genuinely better for you than like the traditional counterparts, it's hard to not be excited about what that means for like an economy that's on chain, and like funds continuing to move more and more into the crypto universe, even if it's only stables. Because like, I mean, we saw this with like NBA Top Shot and things last cycle. Like eventually the money does flow somewhere else, even if it's just starting with people having stable coins, whether it was NBA cards back then or whatever. People will expand and learn. And so I think like there's some parts of like the creator economy stuff I'm not totally convinced on and things, but like it's just fun to see all that kind of experimentation.
Yeah, I think the stablecoin growth is like the fundamental bullish trend in crypto. So I'm aboard with that. All right, brother. Well, appreciate you hopping on. We're excited to follow along. Give us the heads up when you finally figure out how and when you're going to launch a token. We'd love to have you back on so we can include it in the 11 a.m. strategy world here. We did our first buy and burn today, so
I saw that. It's sick. I really like what you guys are doing with that.
it's fun. I just think like I'm a long-term bull too. Like I'm not a trader. I like just being able to say that's cool, and I'm going to take a directional bet on that. And I feel like that's what we're doing here with this show as well. It's a thing that we do every single day. Can keep doing it every single day for a long time. We keep buying some tokens. What might the world look like in the future? 5 years from now? Kind of cool. Kind of cool to think about. I don't know. Am I going to survive 5 years of daily live streams, Josh?
I don't know,
It's a
man.
long
8
time.
a.m.'s it's a tough shift.
Dude, I'm a morning person
It's a
now,
tough
Andy.
shift.
I didn't know you didn't know I was not a morning person before, but here I am. I'm a morning person.
Being a morning person is great, honestly.
I don't
Anyone
agree,
who's not a morning person, I like it.
Thank you for great. Okay, bullish mornings. That's what I'm gonna start channeling here a little bit. All right, man. So monster strategy is MNSTRSTRAT. I'm glad you included at least one vowel in there. Otherwise, I would have had to hate it by default. But good job for that. You can go in there, and I mean, if you got $1,300 burning a hole in your wallet right now, and you want to take a rip for a chance of, I mean, there's some grails in here. This Japanese
We're about
rocket
to restock
pancake
later
bats.
today too with some more. There's some fun ones. Got a lot of Charizards coming in.
Damn. All right. Yeah. Awesome, brother. Well, I'll continue to follow you on FOMO. Hopefully you can help me turn my prospects around there a little bit. And yeah, stoked to catch up with you again soon.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate
Peace,
it.
man.